Last week, Reality Check told you about county sheriffs from across the nation saying they will not enforce any presidential executive orders that violate the Second Amendment. But can sheriffs really do that? At least one CNN anchor says no. Ben has the Reality Check that you won't see anywhere else.
Well, CNN anchor Wolf Blitzer interviewed Sheriff Jim Tracy of Utah County, Utah last week about the stance that he and other Utah sheriffs have taken, that they will not enforce executive orders that violate the Second Amendment. Here's the transcript of what Blitzer said next. But while it's being adjudicated in the lower courts, the Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court, it's the law if the president signs an executive order saying you've got to do something, you've got to do it. You obey the law. So you would really, if the president said that you've got to do it, you would violate that? Is that what you're saying? Well, those were the questions that Wolf Blitzer asked, but he failed to recognize here two important legal issues. Number one, an executive order cannot be issued to require local law enforcement to carry out federal mandates. This is really not up for debate. In 1997, the Supreme Court ruled on this issue. The case was called Mack and Prince versus the United States. The suit involved two local sheriffs, one from Montana, the other from Arizona. They sued, claiming that the feds did not have the power to force them to carry out federal gun control laws. In a 5-2 ruling, the High Court referred to something called dual sovereignty, the opinion that the framers designed the Constitution to allow federal regulation of international and interstate matters, but not internal matters reserved to the state legislatures. Now, this issue has already been decided. Local law enforcement cannot be forced to carry out federal law. But Wolf Blitzer missed another important point. Any executive orders issued by the president over gun control would be to limit the public's access to certain types of guns. So that would mean county sheriffs would be failing to enforce the law. But that's not the same as violating the law, as Blitzer says. For example, in Colorado and Washington, where voters just approved legalizing marijuana, local law enforcement will no longer be enforcing the law the same way the feds do. Federal law has not changed. So marijuana sales in Colorado are just as illegal federally today as a year ago. Blitzer would probably agree that the feds cannot compel sheriffs in Colorado to enforce federal drug laws. Also, Wolf Blitzer probably remembers just 2 years ago when the feds filed suit against the state of Arizona because local law enforcement were attempting to enforce federal immigration law. In that case, the feds claimed that they, and only they, had the right to enforce. Well, what this means for you and for our friend Wolf Blitzer are just a few things to keep in mind. The president is not a king. Not this president, not the one before him, and not the one who will come after. An executive order is not a king's edict. And law enforcement around the country swear an oath of office to the Constitution, not to the office of the president. Their oath to the rule of law, their accountability to the people in their counties. And that is Reality Check.
You can find the sources for the story posted on our website, fox19.com. And if you'd like to make your voice heard, head over to Ben's Facebook page. You can find it by searching Ben Swann.